All right, hello everyone, and welcome to what I guess is going to be the first episode of Verdicts of the Ancient Kings. Alongside me in, cyberspace is my good friend Nico Sharp. Nico, how are you doing?
Good, Crota. Thanks for hosting this.
Uh,
Appreciate it.
no problem. Just been really enjoying all of the talk about Hex, and I think Hero Fall really came as a big surprise to a lot of people in terms of how far the development was and how fast we are going to be able to play it.
Yeah, I'm stoked. They've really hit some milestones here, and the set looks bonkers. So I'm really looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, definitely. But for those of you guys who, why don't you go ahead and explain a little bit of the format of what Verdicts of the Ancient Kings are, how you and I know each other, and what we're going to be hoping to do in, I guess this kind of weekly show that we'll be putting together.
Okay, so Verdict of the Ancient Kings is going to be a new podcast, and the reason I thought it would be a good thing to do is actually there was another podcast that discontinued, which was Threshold, and they might be back, but I'm just kind of as a tribute to them. I thought it'd be great to have another weekly show. Five Shards, I know, does a podcast as well. So we're just trying to fill a void right now in the community to offer more Hex weekly podcast content. And Verdict of the Ancient Kings is actually a card in Hex, and we thought it would be a perfect name for us because Crota and myself are in the same guild. The guild is called Cornerstone, and we cater to older gamers. Crota and myself aren't very old, but that's kind of the theme of the guild. And we thought Verdict of the Ancient Kings would just be a real fitting name. And it's also a pretty cool card. It interrupts target non-truth card. So, and I also know Crota from back in the day when he used to do Warcraft 3 shoutcasting, and I used to watch all his content and actually found out about Hex through Crota's YouTube channel. So it's awesome to be able to meet him up in this different game and format and be able to kind of team up with him to come at you guys with this new content.
Yeah, Hex was one of those games where it got released on the Kickstarter, and a lot of people were wondering, like, what exactly is this? It was kind of like one of those things where if you knew someone involved in the game, you saw it and you're like, oh, this is going to be absolutely bonkers if they can really pull it off. And I think it was one of the highest grossing video games at the time. I think was it like 2.1 million? I'm trying to remember in terms of the Kickstarter and the Slacker backers and everything. And it's been a long and bumpy journey for anyone who's been involved in Hex, but I think everyone is excited in terms of the release time on what we're seeing in terms of Hex right now, and just how fast Hero Fall came relative to relative to Armies of the Myth. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're hitting that 4 month set release milestone that they were talking about since the beginning. So it's starting to show signs that both the engineering team and development are kind of hitting those milestones that they want to hit to kind of bring the game to the fans in a timely manner. So this is a really good step in the right direction, and hopefully we'll see these milestones continue to be hit in the future for future sets and content.
Yeah. Before we jump right into Heroes Fall it's Hero Fall, right? Not Heroes Fall.
Yeah, Hero Fall.
Yeah. So before we jump into Hero Fall, why don't you give a little bit of background in your gaming experience and how you ultimately came to Hex compared to all the other games you've played?
So Hex for me is kind of feeding a need since my childhood to have a TCG in my life. When I was 13, I really got into Magic and fell in love with it, and played it a little bit throughout high school. But as I grew older and now with kids and a family, it's a lot harder to travel to stores to play. I've been a gamer all my life. As I mentioned, knowing you through Warcraft 3, I used to play Warcraft 3 a lot and all the mods there. Got into Dota, got into League of Legends, played a lot of Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always kind of missing that the brewer in me to create decks and play a TCG, and that's always kind of been the niche for me. And this game is filling it right now. So I'm really happy to be here and playing Hex now. I also am the leader of our guild, the Cornerstone Guild, that I founded with a friend that I used to play in a guild with through Guild Wars. Even though guilds aren't really a feature in Hex yet, they will be one at one time, and we're already building an awesome player base of both constructed and PvE players. And I'm happy that Crota is also a part of it, so I'm throwing it back to you, Crota.
All right, a little bit of my background on gaming. I think everyone my age just played a little bit of Magic and got into that, and that was your first like TCG that was out there, and you were turning cards sideways, and people were looking at you like, well, what exactly are you doing? You got strange looks, but anyone who really sat down really began to enjoy it. I couldn't get into Magic just because I didn't have the play group. So a lot of it is based on community, and if you have a good community of Magic players, then it's easy to play Magic. Fortunately for me, I fell into, I guess, what I would call the Decipher crowd, where I started playing the or Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Dot Hack, and I can make a laundry list of games that I've played through Decipher. And eventually, some of the people at Decipher really, really liked me, involved in the community, brought me on. I was, part of the community part of the community development team. I got brought in as a playtester as well, and then I eventually started doing a bit of, I guess, game design for a company called Press Pass Incorporated that made the 24 trading card game. And I'm trying to remember the 24 trading card game was one of the larger games that they made. They also made Full Metal Alchemist back in the day, so I had some design credit as well. Really, really loved it, and then as things come and go, any property or any game based on a intellectual property will eventually fade away. So that's what we found out, and it was rather difficult to try and keep the community together. And I've been trying to fill that itch for a trading card game as well. Me being a father, having kids, trying to get 6 hours or 5 hours to head to your local game store and play Friday Night Magic or anything like that just becomes a little bit more complicated, and as your priorities shift. So really, really excited to just be able to sit down, play some Hex whenever I get a free moment, and no need to jump in the car and worry about if anyone's even at the store. So I know hit the play a game button, maybe wait 2-3 minutes depending on the Evo timings around the world, and I'll be in the game.
Yeah, I heard it. Did you ever play any Fight Club from Decipher?
I did not. I did not play Fight Club. I think at that point I felt a little bit burned out from Decipher in terms of all that. I played Wars, not the Star Wars. I played Wars TCG, and I actually went to the Decipher Vegas Open. Placed really high in some of those events. I had friends who placed very high, and I think they're still waiting on the cash payouts for that event still. So.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be getting it.
That's too bad.
All right, so why don't we go ahead? What would you like to jump into first? Do you want to go into the community news, or do you just want to go straight into the spoilers, as the floodgates of Hero Fall is going to be, if it hasn't opened up already, will be opening up tomorrow for sure?
Well, I mean, there really isn't any community news more face forward than the spoilers, so I guess we might as well just jump straight into that.
All right, so going into Hero Fall, there's going to be 2 brand new keywords that I would say are the cornerstones of Hero Fall. Hero Fall has, thematically and story-driven wise, talks about the major war that's going on between the Ardent and the Underworld, and everything that gets involved in war. And those 2 new keywords are going to be Assault and Scrounge. And these 2 keywords, I think, capture the essence of war fairly accurately. Why don't you go ahead and explain them?
Sure. So Assault is, as you see up on the screen here, it shows that it triggers when a troop you control attacks. The downside is that the card that has the Assault keyword has to be in your hand to get any benefit from that. So That's the only major downside. Anything you play that has the assault keyword on it has to be in your hand, and then you have to also have troops in play that are attacking. The nice thing about assault, though, is that it has a different mechanic for each card. So you see, like a Zanya Bloodfist can give additional rage to itself for every time that assault triggers when the troop attacks, and then other cards might have like a reduced cost or some other mechanic tied to this assault keyword. So that is it's a new and interesting mechanic, and I think it'll be great in limited. I'm not quite sure yet how it's going to look in constructed. It should also be super strong in PvE. Do you want to do the honors for Scrounge, or should I do that one as well?
Well, yeah, I'll do the honors for Scrounge. So Scrounge is a keyword that basically has a number that follows it. So on this particular card here, the Swampwater Recluse, it has a socket. It's a 3-drop 1/1. It has a major socket. So you're kind of like, okay, where's the upside to this? And the upside to this particular card is Scrounge X. When you scrounge, you void X number of troops in your crypt, and by doing so, you get an additional benefit. So what this captures here for the Shinhare Society is this warlock just feeds on, I guess, feeds on his dead brethren to get very, very strong. So early drop, 3-drop 1/1, where you don't have that much in your crypt, he's not going to get that much more powerful. But as quote unquote the war rages on, this Shinhare Warlock can all of a sudden grow to become a very, very large beast. And with the new sockets and the new socket powers, having speed or having crush or anything like that can really turn this 3-drop 1/1 little bunny into a major, major beatstick.
Yeah, Scrounge is looking to be quite good. It does have that huge downside where you do have to void the troops in your crypt, but it looks like we'll have quite a few troops that are going to be able to fill that crypt pretty easily with the new Dreadling mechanic. So I'm looking forward to see how these play. It also opens up a lot of potential in constructed for cards that are above power level for the trade-off of removing troops from the crypt.
Yeah, it's what both of these mechanics feel like you look at that and you're like, oh, that's interesting, and you kind of want to get your hands dirty with them. You don't quite know how it's going to work out. You can kind of theory craft everything in your brain, like, oh, that could be really good, but is it going to be enough to really destabilize the current meta beyond, like, oh, the gems have been changed, but Rune Ear Hierophant is going to, stay as powerful, or are things going to change? Is this 3-drop going to be enough to shift things away from everyone's favorite major minor socketed Shinhare right now?
I think it will be enough, depending on if this is a particular Scrounge card you want to play. I think when we're looking at decks from a both limited and constructed perspective, we'll probably see Scrounge being used as a 1/4 copy that deals with something you can't deal with otherwise. And I think there's this Scrounge 3 troop that they shared that has a remove target card from play or void target card from play for Scrounge 3, which I think will probably be one of the better Scrounge cards in the set for at least constructed play.
Yeah, definitely. Also, would you like to move on to one of the things that they just released today, the new duo resources that seem to caught a lot of people by surprise?
Yeah, let's talk about those.
All right.
So, do you want to start off on that?
I'll go ahead and start off on them. So as you guys know, threshold fixing has been one of the biggest things that a lot of people have been asking for. I got the wrong threshold. Things don't quite work out right. If I use some of the other threshold fixers, I'll be playing off of curve, and just because I do not get in one of those immediate mana sources because it's a 0/1 as opposed to 1/1. Well, today they announced that there's going to be 5 new rare resources coming in, and these are the 5: Well of Ancients, Well of Purpose, Well of Hatred, Well of Innovation, and Well of Life. These 5 resources that you currently see, I don't believe we're getting all 10, right? I think there's only going to be 5 here.
Yeah,
And
they said the next 5 will come with set 6.
all right, and what's interesting to note is that as set 6 comes out, sets 1 and 2 will be rotating out as well. So a lot of questions were brought up, like, are we going to have dual resources, or are resources going to be rotated out as well? And I think with these wells, this is going to be the new resources moving forward.
Yeah, they will be really good. There is a drawback where you do have to have one of the 2 thresholds in play before you can actually gain the threshold that you want. So that's the one downside of these shards. And I think all the resources in Hex will always have a trade-off, whether it be, you need allegiance from the set 3 and 4 resources, or if you need to have a shard in play, or if there's some other consideration. But other than that, these are the best dual shards we have in the game so far. I think they'll still be paired with the uncommon shards from set 2 in many cases, just because those cards will guarantee you get the shard, and it'll just help you with fixing a little bit more, even though it sets you back a turn. But yeah, these are the best that we've seen so far in terms of trade-offs.
All right, so for those of you guys who are looking at it, and the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't quite get it. It reads, have a blood shard or have a wild shard, and then you gain a blood or a wild shard. You always gain a charge though, right? Even if you do not have the blood or wild shard to open up with?
Correct, and you'll always get the permanent resource too.
All right, moving right along. There have been a lot of cards that were recently released, and Nico and I have been looking at a lot of these cards, and there was certain cards that just jumped to the forefront in terms of what were they thinking, how is this going to affect the meta, and how is this going to affect limited play. And we basically pulled together some of our favorites and thought that we'd take a look at them together, and I don't know, just talked about it, because part of the fun of a trading card game is looking at a card and trying to figure out situations in ways that you can use them. As been said, there's no such thing as a bad card. There's always going to be a situation where you can use a specific card, but is this card just going to be a limited bomb? Is it going to be, strictly for those one-off PvE encounters, or is it going to make the hallowed halls of PvP constructed? So taking a look at these 4 cards, let's go ahead and take a look at the Puke Troll first.
All right. Yeah, so the Puke Troll is a quick troop, so you can play it on your opponent's turn, and also you can play it as a combat trick. And what it says is it has a one-shot ability where you pay X, and you give target troop +X and crush. So it's like a quasi smash to the ground, if you're familiar with that wild card. And it'll allow you to sneak in damage and also get another body into play. So a 3/3 for 3 alone is commendable, and being able to play that at quick speed and block with it, you can kill any 2 attack or less troop and come out ahead. So I think it's going to be actually a really great card. And I just love the trolls, the stink troll, the gas troll, the puke troll. I really think there's going to be a snot troll coming soon. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's a fun card. I like the art, and I think it's very well costed for what it does.
Yeah, you look at the card, and it's basically a smash to the ground with a body attached. The fact that it's only uncommon means that it is going to be played and seen a lot in Evo Gauntlets and in limited play. So you're always going to have to worry if your opponent is running Ruby Wild, does your opponent have the Puke Troll? I love the fact that it has Crush as well, because it means that it can be used both offensively or defensively, where if you're attacking and your opponent goes, oh, he doesn't have lethal, you can play the Puke Troll in order to get that additional crush damage or push it over the top, or you can play it defensively as that combat trick, and where crush isn't going to matter 9 times out of 10 defensively, but it's still going to be able to help you trade probably for a 1-for-0 if you play your cards right.
And just one more thing to add about Pig Troll is that its ability will allow it to target himself. So you can even pump him up to kill a larger troop if you have more than 3 resources.
All right, moving right along. Bring to justice. Void target non-valorous troop. For those of you guys who do not know what valorous is a keyword that is given off of a shardless basic action that gives your troop +1/+1. Do we want to go ahead and explain how Valor cards come into existence?
Sure. Valor or Valorous?
Well, is it you play Valor and you give a troop Valorous, correct?
Yeah. So Valor is a new card. I think I want to say it's a 1-cost basic action that gives a troop permanent +1/+1. And they are created in various ways. Some troops can create them. Champions also have the ability to create them. I think it's also a playable card in the set. So there's various ways to get this +1/+1 basic action. And any troop targeted with that +1/+1 then becomes valorous or valorous. And I think it's going to be one of the key mechanics in this set. It looks like they're really building a lot of cards around it. However, it's hard to say how common they're going to be played. So to me, I feel like this Bring to Justice as a common is going to be a heavily fought after common card in limited draft. It's going to be seeing a lot of play in Evo and Sealed, but especially draft. I think this will be picked up fairly early because it's hard to say without seeing the entire set how often Valor cards will be created. Oh, thanks for throwing that up there.
No problem. So yeah, Valor, if you look at the icon, it is a created card, so it doesn't have the common, uncommon, or rare. So it's purely created. You cannot draft it, which is going to be very, very interesting.
Good to know.
Yeah, so no one's going to be passing around Valors, but we did see a number of ways to get Valor. Troops come into play, generate 3 Valors, put them into your hand. We saw when a troop attacks, I believe you can create Valors as well. What's interesting is Valor can be given to Ardent or Underworld troops. I believe, though, Ardent cards are the ones that generate Valor.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
All right, moving right along, we go into a card that I was fortunate enough to go ahead and spoil last Friday, and this is Clash of Steel. Clash of Steel was, I believe, one of the best cards that I've seen that I know is going to be a bomb, both in PvP, in constructed and in limited, just because it's a board wipe that is effectively cost 4 diamond. When you saw this card, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, this card is super powerful. It really, it takes care of anything. It's just, what I guess the trade-off is, and my daughter's talking to me through the door, but the trade-off is that, they get to keep their strongest thing in play. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to deal with that one thing that you need to remove, but it's going to deal with a pesky swarm of things. So it's going to be really good in a control-based diamond blood deck or control-based diamond deck that is just trying to keep the board clear until it can play its big threats.
Yeah. Also, diamond has ways to remove single targets, prides, fall, repel. There's already ways to deal with large troops with diamond. I feel it feels like Clash of Steel it rounds out everything else for diamond control. And being able to push diamond control in a direction that doesn't need to rely on blood nearly as much, or sapphire as well. So diamond control can even start going into a little bit more ruby as well, even and with direct damage and also this board wipe.
Yeah, the diamond control, correct. There's so many other answers. Meek, Pride's Fall, Solitary Exile. So yeah, they have all the answers for single target. It's just the more massive swings like this card and Purge, which is way more expensive than Clash of Steel.
Yeah.
But they have some larger abilities that can basically do what this action does, but not as quite early as Clash of Steel. So I think Clash of Steel is going to be just huge in all formats.
All right, moving right along. Everyone's card that they love to hate, and there's a lot of discussion on the forums right now. Why don't you go ahead and dive into the Rollicking Reveler?
Oh man, yeah, this card is just a beast. It's going to be likely the Hierophant, the Ruiner Hierophant of set 5. The reason why he's so strong is, first of all, he's a 5/4 Crush Troop for 4, which is perfect on curve, better than most cards on curve. And then on top of it, it has this ability that deals damage to a champion that plays in action or constant. If an opposing champion tries to kill the Rollicking Reveler with, like, say, a Rage Fire, they're going to take 5 damage to the face. Or if they need to trade 2 cards to deal with him, they're going to take 10 damage to the face. And the other crazy thing with the Reveler is that it is physically dealing the damage. So if you happen to get double damage on him or quadra damage or whatever, how many multipliers of damage you can get on him, it's going to deal that much times 5. So it's just going to basically one-shot a champion at that point. It's just going to... This card is probably going to change the way that constructed decks play for Wild Ruby. And also it's going to change the reserves and main deck removal that a lot of decks right now are playing, like McBombus, that don't have a lot of that. I don't know if they have any troop-based removal or I guess it would have to be artifact-based removal to deal with this threat without taking damage. So it'll be interesting to see how this reshapes the meta going forward.
Yeah, I can already imagine it once where someone tries to kill or reap the Rollicking Reveler, and your opponent responds by playing 2 Soul of Battles, and you instantly die because he deals 20 damage to the face. And I think a lot of people were legitimately concerned about this card, but you always need to have cards that kind of shift the meta just a little bit more. And as you mentioned, a troop-based removal is going to become just a much more prominent a prominent thing. A Crocosaur already is troop-based removal. That's been in play for quite some time, and people seem to get a lot of value out of Crocosaur. And I can see Crocosaur biting into 2 Rollicking Revelers and kind of laughing it off as, you know what, I still got a 2-for-1. I completely bypassed that damage. And it's going to be interesting to see what other cards are still out there. We mentioned that Scrounge card earlier. I believe it was a Scrounge Shin Hair card where it was 3 and you actually destroyed another troop. That was another way of removing the Rollicking Reveler without taking that devastating 5 damage.
Yeah, it's another set 5 answer that I think will be probably drafted very heavily because of threats like this. There's a lot of bombs in set 5 to be afraid of. So it will be crucial for someone that really wants to do well in Limited to think of threats like this ahead of time and make sure that they have answers.
All right, moving right along to some of the other cards in the set. Last week they released another human or another Wolf Knight in Bowie Starlight. Bowie Starlight, legendary, and I didn't catch the joke at first. I feel kind of ashamed that I didn't. But Bowie Starlight, 5-drop, Diamond, Sapphire. When he enters play, create Starlight and put her into play. 5-drop, 3/3. What do you make of Bowie Starlight?
Well, yeah, I caught the joke right away. It's a tribute to David Bowie, which is pretty nice. I think the card is actually really good. I don't quite know how strong it's going to be for its cost, but the advantage it offers for a control style or just draw go style deck is really big. So I think it will see play. It'll probably be in these more fringe combo style decks and constructed, but it's going to be great in limited. It's going to be great in PvE. In fact, I think it can combo very nicely with like Forgotten Tomb Lord or Tomb Seeker and a few other cards that can really benefit by the card draw it offers. And there's a lot of ways to kind of do combat tricks with Starlight, especially in PvE, where you know your the AI opponent probably won't calculate for those card draw procs to get +1/+1. So it's a really good card. The card draw that it offers is probably some of the best card draw I've ever seen because you get the trigger on attack.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wait until you deal damage. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, I saw the cards, and Diamond Sapphire, whenever you find a way to draw an additional card, that's going to be great. Also, Starlight, you saw him at first, like he's a 3-drop 1/1, and I think when they first released Starlight, it didn't have the unique keyword. It is unique, and so none of this bouncing Bowie back to the board a couple of times. You can only have one Starlight with one Bowie at the same time, but really just a strong duo. And I like how it fills up your hand. It is a 5-drop, so Starlight's not going to be normally that powerful. Maybe a 3/3, maybe or 4/4 the turn it comes into play. But after that, the longer it sits on the table, and if you're able to protect them, it's just going to grow into a monstrous beast.
Yeah, it should be a finisher in the right deck. We'll see how it plays once people start getting their hands dirty and constructed. But I think we'll see it a lot more in limited. It might just be kind of more of a gimmicky tribute card than a high tier constructed card. But I'm willing to bet someone will find a way to make it work.
All right, moving along, we're going to be looking at the Empress of Ice. And Empress of Ice is one of the new, what I would call threshold-based bombs that is coming out in Hero Fall. 3-drop 2/4. When you gain a Sapphire, exhaust target opposing card. If you have 5 Sapphire threshold, opposing cards can't ready during their controller's ready step. This is absolutely a Sapphire control's dream come true.
Yeah, I mean the reason that this 5 threshold requirement thing does not say next ready step is because it is having you commit heavily into Sapphire, but because it doesn't say next controller's ready step, that means that those cards are permanently exhausted. So it is like Gralk on steroids, basically, is what this card is. And I mean, a 2/4 for 3 that has flight alone is awesome. So this legendary is probably going to be heavily sought after. Probably pretty expensive as well. It does ask you to commit heavily into Sapphire, but it's good even if you don't get that lock. So I think it'll be played quite a bit.
A couple of key things to notice about this card, though, is it does not have the Ardent or Underworld icon. And with Hero Fall set, Ardent and Underworld, there's a lot of things that trigger off each other. There's a lot of I believe there's some deck building requirements that say you need to have 10 different types of Underworld or 10 different types of Ardent troops in your deck. Do you think the Vampire Kings, the Root Fathers, some of the more staple cards that we've seen that don't have a faction keyword, do you think those will see more or less play, or is it going to be a hodgepodge of everything, all of the best cards across all 3 come together?
I think it's going to be hodgepodge of all the best cards because they did something interesting with this set that I didn't really realize in any of the prior sets, and maybe this is also a benefit of having more cards and more sets to look across. But the power level of cards that are not Ardent or Underworld seem to be pretty on par with the cards that are only strictly Ardent or Underworld, meaning that even if you get the benefit from an Ardent or Underworld mechanic, the cards that are not attributed to those alliances have a slightly higher power level just by themselves. So they'll probably still see a lot of play.
All right. When I first saw Empress of Ice, I was thinking to myself, you know what? Control decks they're obviously going to run 4 of this card. And that was true up until I saw the final card that we're taking a look at here. The card that is, well, named after this particular set. And Hero Fall was a card that instantly made me say, wow. 3 cost, double blood threshold, quick action, destroy target opposing troop, then void each opposing troop with the same name in hands or decks. What do you make of this?
The card is not going to be fun to play against. I mean, it's going to be fun to play and amazing to have in your hand. And I mean, it can deal with almost any troop. It will not be able to kill an invincible troop, but I think the second keyword of the card will still go off, where all of the opposing troops with the same name in hands or decks will still be removed. I recently, well, not recently, maybe 3 weeks ago, I had a game where someone had a closed coffins in play, and he took out all of my troops except for an Angel of Dawn I bounced, and I was still able to win with that one Angel of Dawn. So even though your deck is being thinned and you're losing a lot of your big bomby troops to cards like this, you can still take a game. So I don't want people to feel discouraged when they look at this card and think, oh my god, I'm never going to be able to win if they remove all my best troops. There's still a chance, so don't lose hope. It is going to be really strong, and it's going to suck when you get hit by it, but I think that it's not going to be as overpowered as people are leading it on to be.
Do you think it's going to affect deck building in any way, where people don't run, say, 4 Vampire Kings, 4 Vampire Princes, 4 Vampire Princess? Do you think they'll diversify a little bit more, or do you think people will still be like, you know what, 4 is the number that I can consistently hit and I feel comfortable doing this?
It really depends on how you like to build your deck, and whether or not you think that by diversifying your deck you're making it stronger or weaker. Because there are a lot of great players out there that get top finishes with decks that have 3-of, 2-ofs, and 1-ofs. So if you think that the best way to win is always having 4-ofs, that's not necessarily true, but sometimes the deck that you build is a lot better with more consistency. So you don't want to take away from that consistency if there's some element of the deck that will be at a disadvantage for not having it. So I don't think you want to really change the way you're building your deck, but it's definitely something to consider now with a card like this.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those powerful cards that you have to be mindful of. And I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Valiant, Escort, and some other cards where you're allowed to bounce troops from play, if you might see people purposely throwing back their own cards or time rippling their own cards in order to save from a hero fall. So there's going to be a lot of utility on both sides like that, where cards where you would only use on your opponent's troops, you can now use on your own troops as well to try and dodge. Imagine if someone tries to hero fall and you transmogrify your own troop so that it doesn't trigger the second text, avoid each opposing troop with the same name, because it could be some other random troop that you don't have at all.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting ways to respond to hero fall, like a time ripple or a Valiant Escort trigger, or some other way to blank out the card before the destroy mechanic resolves, and that will negate both parts of the text on hero fall, which a lot of people will be trying to do because they want to just keep those crucial troops in their deck to potentially have answers in the future that help them deal with whatever board state is presented.
All right. And we're getting some questions on the wording. It says destroy target as target opposing troop, then void opposing troop with the same name in hands or decks. If the first part doesn't happen, does the second part? Is it a true if then? Or
yeah, I mean, I quickly responded to that. I'm pretty sure that the destroy target troop part does not need to happen for the then to trigger, but I could be 100% wrong. So we'll see. There is a lot of cards with wording that are questionable that I'd have to either ask someone at Hex to clarify on, or just find out for myself through play. And that's part of the cool thing about Hex being a very complex, high skill level game where, you might know something that your opponent doesn't know, which,
Hmm.
you learn through play, and it gives you a slight advantage. It's not always, you always don't feel fair when someone makes a mistake that they could have easily avoided, but it is a nice competitive edge you can get while you're playing a game like this.
Yeah, I remember the first time, like Grim Martyr. I'm gonna go back into a quick limited game. Grim Martyr had shifted its sacrifice ability to a spider, and then he had sacked the spider. I'm like, okay, and then he transformed his spider into a zombie, put it into his hand, played it, sacked it again, drew 2 more cards. And I was just like, I did not know you could do that. Where when it kept the shift ability, and I read it, I'm like, of course it would keep the shift ability. So this is a game that you can constantly learn. If you weren't sure how things particularly worked, reversion, revert, and transform, small key little words like that can make you change and make you think about the gameplay in completely different ways.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, moving right along to, well, I guess one of your favorite cards, that the Dark Heart of Nozun, but also, I think the first dragon that might actually see play in Constructed. What are your thoughts on the Lifebinder?
The Lifebinder. So yeah, that dragon I believe was just spoiled very recently. So not many people that are tuning in now or that might even watch our podcast tomorrow may have seen this yet. But the Lifebound mechanic in keyword is brand new. It's only going to be on this dragon for now. And basically, what it does is all troops in play get the Lifebound keyword, and as long as one troop with Lifebound is in play, all other troops from the crypt will come back into play at the end of each turn. It's either at the end of the turn or beginning of the turn. I think we have the text somewhere, and I don't have it in front of me. Maybe you can speak to it, but I think that particular mechanic is going to be crucial for this new set because a lot of cards will get rid or destroy troops and put them into the crypt. There's not many board wipe scenarios where all troops will be destroyed. That one card that you shared just a while ago, the 3-cost diamond card that will void all other troops except for one. I don't know if Lifebound will bring them back in from the void, but still, it's a very strong mechanic for single target removal, or even in trade scenarios where you need to make a lot of bad blocks, you can just get all those troops back and still have a board force to punch in damage. So yeah, it's very good. What are your thoughts on that dragon?
Well, the first time it's a 6 cost 6/6 with flight. I was like, okay, that's a little expensive, and then I had to read up on what Lifebound did, and it's one of those cards that I enjoy, and it's gonna be great in limited. But part of me wonders, it's a card that can keep you ahead if you're ahead. It doesn't have that catch up mechanic that some of the other, like, that you want to be able to play, like all of a sudden if you only have 1 or 2 troops on the board, the Lifebinder is not going to give you that extra oomph unless the troops you have in play are in and of themselves bombs. It stabilizes a board, and it's gonna be and it's really strong. And part of me wants to get really excited, but I know that it's gonna be in those situations where I need to curb my enthusiasm a little bit. 6 drop, 6/6 flight. It's gonna be super strong, but is it gonna help you come back from a game? I don't know about that.
The one case, I mean, and this fits perfectly into Metronomi's Forever's Child deck. And if you're playing Rutherford Banks, you can really get like one of those big bombs back into play, and then protect it with his dragon. And I think that's one way to really make it work. There will probably be other ways as well, but that's one way to go from no board state to amazing board state in a single turn.
If you can get that Lifebound and keep it around at the start of your turn, it pulls everything back at the start of the turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Metrimony. Yeah, I think he hit it on the head. If you can keep Rutherford Banks and play with it a little bit more, I think the Void is going to be something that's going to be used a lot more in this particular set. And I think Closed Coffins is definitely going to be a card that people are going to be sideboard or putting in their reserve even more heavily if they're running Blood because of Lifebound.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Well, we'll see what happens. Void is going to be much more widely used now because of these set five spoils.
Mm-hmm.
So that's completely correct. That there's probably going to be a lot more cases now where your troops are not going to be in the crypt for whatever reason, whether or not it's Scrounge or. But in constructed, that can be completely different. So we'll see what happens in that format, especially with things like dreadlings filling your crypt now that are permanently going into the crypt every turn. With Lifebound, they would come back every turn, so that's interesting as well. Do you want to move on to Dark Heart?
Yeah, Dark Heart of Nozun, 5-drop, 4/4, socketable major and minor, and at the start of each champion's turn, that champion sacrifices a non-socketed card they control. I absolutely love this card in limited. It it puts a clock in play, and in constructed, you are going to be, if you're running this card, you are obviously running only socketed troops. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I feel like the Dark Heart of Nolzon is the best artifact card we have seen yet. I mean, there's a lot of awesome artifacts, but this artifact it's really above everything else we've seen in terms of by the turn you can play it, what it actually does, um, each and every turn, and it also opens up a brand new way to play the game. Like you can just play all socket troops. You can go 5-color rainbow and play all the gems you want. And I think the new gem rotation also is facilitating this as being something that is viable yet not broken, perhaps, because I feel like they reduced the power level in some ways for the new gems.
Well, one thing that I liked about the new gems as well is all of them are, you can correct me if I'm wrong, all of them are single threshold, correct? It's not super difficult to, once you have it, and it's not like, oh, I need one more wild threshold in order to get spell shield or to be able to get my rhinos when I attack. They're all
Yeah, they're all splashable.
Yeah, they're all splashable, and that makes it much more just easier for you to splash these gems and get the one that you want. And I'm really interested in how, I guess, the Gemborn Prowler is going to be brought into maybe a little bit more of the forefront if socketed decks become that much more common.
Yeah, we may see main deck Gemborn Prowlers. His ability is only, I believe, 2 costs, so you can destroy any socketed troop anytime you want because it's also at quick speed for 2, and that's going to be something that is going to be tier 1 removal against this deck if it becomes a format-defining deck. And I think it might, because the new major diamond gem allows a card that you draw to have a cost reduction of 2. So that we might see that paired with Dark Heart to have this come in on turn 3.
Oh, that'd be scary. Dark Heart of Nuzan, if you have a diamond threshold, a 3-drop 4/4 that makes your opponent sacrifice a card at the start of their turn. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if that'll see a ton of play, but that's one interesting way to utilize the major gem socket on this particular card.
All right, so we've taken a look at a handful of cards coming up from Heroes Fall. We know that the playtest realm will be releasing in just a few hours, and I believe in 11 or 13 hours we will have the playtest realm to answer all of our rules questions on how specific cards work. And I believe the playtest realm is going to be open for 48 hours until Thursday. So what will you be doing for the next 48 hours?
Well, probably working, but I know that I'm not someone that actually utilizes a PTR very often. I get a lot of feedback from other people in our guild and community so I'll probably learn that way.
Hmm.
But I will be very interested to see the other cards that are spoiled once the PTR opens. So I will be looking for that. I might hop on potentially to check a few interactions that I'm curious about, like a few that we talked about today. There's another card that I'm interested in, which is the Reginald's Riposte.
Mm.
Is that how you say it? Riposte or riposte? I
I
always forget how to say that word. Anyway, yeah, so I am looking forward to some interactions and figuring out how they work, but I will probably get most of my feedback through other players. How about you?
right, for me, I'll probably be checking out the playtest realms. Um, Normally they give people a little bit of platinum to just be able to crack open packs, and I like to see the distribution. I like to read all the cards, and I like to experiment with some drafts just to get a little bit of a sense of what the limited format's going to be like. And I'm liking what I'm seeing. It looks like the drafting 555 is going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a really big happy learning experience for a lot of players.
Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to that too. And I think I'm kind of trying to reserve it to a fresh experience once it launches so that I don't know. I guess sometimes I like to look in with fresh eyes to something brand new without kind of waiting in anticipation for things I already know. Even though I'm looking at all the spoilers and everything ahead of time, I don't know. It's kind of one of those superstitious things where I'm trying to save it, even though I'm not saving it. Anyway,
All right. Well, I guess for me and Nico, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And leave comments below if there's anything that you guys would like to see us cover or like to hear us talk about. Definitely let us know. And if you guys haven't already checked out Cornerstone Guild, definitely hop on the forums and come look us up, and we will extend an invitation to you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
thanks.